Hey trappers, it's a rainy day today. I don't know what the day even is, October 8th maybe. I gotta start putting some stakes in the ground, holes in the ground, doing a little bit of preseason canine work, but it's raining now. I was kind of holding off for this rain. It's extremely dry here in East Central Pennsylvania. Digging holes, pounding stakes in that dry ground is a real bear, and you really can't even keep the holes, intact. They just kind of crumble in, and so I'm glad for this rain. I am, and I just need to get the ambition to get out there and get some sets pre-staked and look over some of the territory. But anyway, on to the video. I am going to do a video today for you guys and girls on the Bridger 150. What I like about this trap, two reasons. Number one is the size. It's a 5x5 trap. Just gives you a little bit bigger opening. I mean, obviously for muskrats, I think this is about the perfect size trap for a muskrat. And for mink, it gives you also a little bit bigger opening, a little more inviting for the mink to go through. For bottom edges, it works for bottom edge sets for sure. And I'm gonna try some this year with a setup, and I'll show that probably in another video. Of how I'm gonna set these up and try to use them and see if I can catch mink in top edge sets. I love my Victor #2 square jaws with the mink pan for top edges, but you got to deal with weights because of raccoons, and what I'm trying to do by top edge with a conibear body grip is to avoid the raccoons. So number one, what I love about this trap is the size. Number two, what I like about this trap, it's a magnum trap. Tight closure, very good feature to have for mink. Some folks do not like the small spring eyes on these. They can be a little bit of a pain, but the reason the Cavens made the spring eye so small in the Bridger 150 and 155, just a side note, anything I talk about on this video will also apply to the Bridger 155, the two spring model. But the small spring eyes help with that complete closure, making it a magnum. So I can live with that. What I don't like about this trap as it comes from the factory is the trigger. There's all kinds of issues with the trigger. One, when you bend at the trigger, sometimes the wires get loose in there. So you have to crush them in a vise to tighten them up. And it just doesn't fit the dog well. It's just it's either too touchy or not touchy enough, I guess, if you have the dog in a certain way. Once these traps get a little bit of rust on them, it does get a little better, but I don't like the trigger, and I really don't know any trapper out there who really, really likes the trigger on these Bridger 150s. The other thing I don't like about the Bridger 150 triggers compared to, say, the Duke 110s is a Duke 110, especially when you wax it, it works on four-way action, which means front and back will set the trap off trigger movement, and side-to-side trigger movement will set the trap off. And on these new Bridgers, sometimes, like there it did, but once you get a little bit of rust on them, see what I mean? They don't go off from side pressure, especially when you get rust on them. So I've been toying with trying to get the trigger right, and it takes a lot of adjustment to get it better. But I found a fix, and I'm gonna move the camera over to my bench, and I'll show you how I found that I really like the way this fix works on these Bridger 150 and 155s. If you hate the Bridger 150 triggers, or you're too touchy, or you just don't like them in general, I think you're going to get something out of this video. Yeah, so it isn't the perfect fix because it does cost a little bit of money, but it's the best fix I've found so far for these. So stay tuned, and I'll bring the camera over and I'll show you what I do. All right, to start out, originally what I did to a few of these Bridger 150s, and I just want to say I learned this from a Charles Dobbins book. I think it was his mink book, actually. But Charlie Dobbins would take a Victor 220 4-weight trigger, and that's a pinched-on trigger. And Charlie would put them on his Bodygrip traps, and because it's designed for a 220, it's a bigger opening in the top of the trigger. It's actually oversized for that bar, and it gives side-to-side, a lot of side-to-side play, and that makes it act as a 4-weight trigger on these things. So I'll set this. I'm trying to do this in the camera, not without seeing it, and that's a lot tougher when you're not looking at it. Okay, now I'll show you how nicely this works. There you see it goes off on side pressure. Okay, so now what I learned was it did not work really well with the stock Bridger dog, and I'll show you why. This is the stock Bridger dog. Let me get that to focus. That's the stock Bridger dog, and that is, I'm not going to be able to get that to focus close. That is a Oneida Victor 110 dog. I had to take the stock Bridger dog off and put the thinner dog on to work well with that trigger. The Bridger trigger is very thick gauge steel. So while this fix worked, this trap works well, the problem with it is I'm replacing the trigger and the dog to make it work correctly. So I thought I'd give something a try, and I ended up doing it. Just a second here. I ended up doing it. It worked really well. What I did was I took a bolt-on 220 trigger. That's what that is a bolt-on 220 trigger. And I took the stock Bridger trigger off. This is the stock Bridger dog. And I'll try to set this. I got to move my head to the side. Now, that is that stock Bridger dog and the bolt-on 220 trigger, they mate perfectly together. They work really, really nice together. So by using that trigger, I did not have to replace the dog, which would be added cost to these traps. The other benefit to doing this is you're going to get a little bit heavier duty trigger. But as you can see, these nicely go off with side to side and obviously front and back. So I really like this bolt-on 220 trigger on these 150s, and it'll work just as well on a 155. A lot of trapping supply dealers have these. I have them on my website, tstrapline.com, if you're going to be looking for some to modify your 150s or 155s. What I will say, and everybody's going to do things a little differently, that's what it'll look like. Let me move that to the side so you can see a little. That's what it'll look like when you put it on. It's extremely long. So depending what you want to do with it, you can either bend that in different configurations, or like I did, because I am going to try these on top edge sets, I just cut 1.25 inches off the end of that trigger. So what I did was 1.25 inches. I'll set the trap. I'll show you. I think that would probably work in most situations, but some folks may want to bend them into different configurations, and then you can leave the trigger wires long. I think that'll work pretty well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the trigger on the bottom for the top edge sets, and as you can see, I have some Sharpie marks there. That's where I'm going to bend these trigger wires over, so that it's a full open view for the mink to swim through. And also I'll try to keep those trigger wires underwater to not catch leaves and debris that are floating down the stream. So yeah, that's the fix there. It's a pretty simple fix. You just drill out the rivet, and I'll show you that. Just drill out that rivet in the stock trigger, bend it apart with a pliers. Excuse me. Bend it apart. I'm not sorry, a screwdriver, and then just install your bolt-on 220 trigger and cut them if you want to. I know there's Maine Fisher trappers and Martin trappers that would like to use this trap in their boxes, and some of them told me they absolutely despise the stock Bridger triggers. I think they're gonna really like that 220 bolt-on. Like I said, it mates up perfectly with the stock Bridger dog. And if you're looking for them, we got them on tstrapline.com. So till next time, I'm going to make a video at some point here showing how I'm going to do an experimental top edge setup with this trap. But hopefully this helps you out with your 150s and 155s.